Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive.
Always ready.
Today, we're going to be transported to southern Brazil in the early 1900s.
Ooh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah. And our vehicle for this trip is a richly detailed historical novel set in a fictional town called Santa Fe.
So we're not just talking about like dry historical facts.
No, it's more about like how a whole community experiences a century of change. It's almost like we're getting a glimpse into their daily lives.
I like that. It's like peeking through a time capsule.
Exactly. The novel really brings to life all those little details, the sights, the sounds, even the smells of rural Brazil.
I can almost smell the coffee brewing already.
Yeah, right.
Eh.
And we're starting right at the dawn of the 20th century.
Yeah.
Santa Fe is kind of in this transition from a traditional agricultural society into a more modern era.
A lot of tension there, I bet.
Oh, yeah. And to really understand these changes, we need to understand the people, right? The people living through them.
Of course. So who are we meeting in this time capsule?
Well, that's where the Cambará family comes in.
Cambará family.
Yeah. They're this prominent landowning family, kind of the old guard of the region. They really embody this push and pull between tradition and progress that's happening all over Santa Fe.
That sounds like every family, honestly, in some way or another.
Yeah, you got a point there.
Yeah.
So you've got the patriarch, Licurgo Cambará. He's described as incredibly stubborn, you know, deeply suspicious of anything new, clinging to the old ways.
A real traditionalist, I see.
Yeah, exactly. And he's a powerful figure in town, so his views really shape the social and political landscape.
Oh, so his opinions really matter.
They matter a lot, yeah. But then you have his son, Rodrigo.
Rodrigo.
Yeah, Rodrigo. He's just graduated from medical school in Rio de Janeiro, and he comes back to Santa Fe full of new ideas.
Oh, so he's bringing the big city ideas back home.
He is, and he's got this burning desire to modernize the town, to help people, and to challenge the status quo. You can imagine that doesn't go over so well with his dad.
Talk about a recipe for conflict.
You said it. And it's fascinating, isn't it? Rodrigo's time in Rio exposed him to so much more than what he knew in Santa Fe. New technologies, different political ideologies, even just a faster pace of life.
Yeah, it's like he stepped into a different world.
Exactly. And he doesn't just come back with a medical degree, he comes back with a whole new worldview.
I bet that was a shock for the folks back in Santa Fe.
You can say that again. And the novel even drops some hints about Rodrigo's past in Rio, like
Yeah.
shadowy references to connections with important figures, even whispers of something called administrative advocacy.
Administrative advocacy. Sounds a little shady.
Yeah, if you read between the lines, it seems like he might have gotten caught up in some questionable dealings.
Well, that definitely adds another layer to his character, right? He's not just this idealistic doctor anymore.
Right, it makes you wonder what he's hiding.
It makes you wonder how that'll play out when he butts heads with his dad.
Oh, the tension is definitely there. Here's this young man, eager to make his mark, going up against his powerful father, who represents the very traditions he wants to overturn.
Classic generational clash, but with much higher stakes, it seems.
Exactly. And it's not just about one family either. Santa Fe is made up of all kinds of folks. Established families like the Cambaras, immigrants trying to make a new life, a working class starting to find its voice.
A real melting pot of experiences.
That's a good way to put it. And they all have their own hopes and anxieties, right?
Yeah.
Especially about all these changes happening around them.
Change can be scary.
For sure. Especially when it comes so quickly. The arrival of things like cars, electricity, those become symbols of this clash between the old and new.
Yeah, they represent a whole different way of life.
Right. Like there's this scene in the novel where Rodrigo brings the very first automobile to Santa Fe. It's around 1912 or so. Imagine what that must have been like.
Wow, yeah. It's a symbol of modernity suddenly disrupting the peace of this rural town.
It must turn some heads. And speaking of disruptions, the novel focuses on this social club called Commercial. It kind of becomes a microcosm of all the social and political tensions brewing in Santa Fe.
A social club, huh? So like a gathering place for the townsfolk?
Yeah, but it's where the town's elite gather. It's very exclusionary, like certain groups are deliberately kept out, which just highlights the power imbalances and the resistance to change that Rodrigo's going to run into.
Sounds like a powder keg waiting to explode.
Doesn't it? We've got a community on the edge of change, deep divisions bubbling just below the surface, and a young man who's about to shake things up in a big way.
I'm already on the edge of my seat.
And knowing Rodrigo, he's not going to go about it quietly. Things are definitely about to get a lot more complicated.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait for the next part of our deep dive to find out what happens, right?
Yeah, you'll definitely want to tune in for that. Welcome back to our deep dive into Santa Fe at the turn of the century. When we left off, Rodrigo was kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? Like facing off against his dad and the old ways and a town clinging to tradition.
Yeah, it seemed like a real uphill battle for him.
Definitely. But Rodrigo, well, he's not one to back down from a challenge. He jumps right into the thick of local politics.
Oh, really? How so?
He starts a newspaper called a FARPA.
A FARPA. What's that like? What does that mean?
The Splinter, I
Yeah.
think. And it becomes his weapon against this guy, Colonel Trindade, who is like the political boss of Santa Fe.
So he's taking on the big guy directly. Bold move.
It is.
Yeah.
And he uses the newspaper to, expose corruption and challenge Trindade's policies. He's really advocating for the people who are being kind of left behind in all this change.
He's putting himself out there, that's for sure. And how does Trindade react to this?
Well, let's just say things get a little heated. It's not all like polite debates and opinion pieces.
No. So it escalates.
Oh, yeah. Like there's this confrontation with Trindade's, how do I put this? His enforcer, I guess. A guy called Dante Seco.
Dante Seco. What kind of name is that?
It means dry tooth.
Oh, that's pretty menacing.
Yeah. And get this, Rodrigo actually attacks him.
Whoa, hold on. Rodrigo, the doctor, he attacks this Dante Seco.
Yeah, it's a moment of real violence,
Yeah.
Shows just how high the tension is running.
I bet. I mean, a doctor assaulting someone, that's got to have serious consequences.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, legally, socially, within his own family.
Yeah, his father must be furious.
You can imagine. But it goes deeper than that. Like, it really forces Rodrigo to do some soul searching.
That makes sense. I mean, violence is a pretty drastic step.
It is. And it's interesting how the novel explores his internal conflict,
Yeah.
Here's this guy who believes in progress and justice, but he's also wrestling with the guilt of his actions.
It's like a moral dilemma playing out right in front of us.
Exactly. He even, seeks refuge in the countryside for a while.
Mm.
It's like he's contrasting that chaos of town life with the peacefulness of nature,
Trying to find some inner peace, maybe?
Could be. And then things get even more complicated when this presidential candidate, Hermes de Fonseca, comes to Santa Fe.
Oh, so national politics are getting involved now.
Yeah, and it throws the town into even more turmoil. Some people are excited, some are scared, and Rodrigo starts to feel disillusioned by the whole process.
I can see why. It's like all these big forces are colliding, and he's right in the middle of it.
Right. And then there's this tragedy that strikes the Macedo family.
The Macedo family. Who are they?
They're another family in Santa Fe.
Mm-hmm.
And this tragedy, it really kind of fuels the existing tensions, forces people to pick sides.
So now it's not just about politics, it's about personal loyalties, too.
It's all intertwined. So we've got Rodrigo wrestling with his choices, facing powerful enemies, and a town that's becoming more and more divided.
What does he do? Does he just give up?
Welcome back to the show. We're in the thick of it now with Rodrigo and Santa Fe. Last we left off, things were pretty intense, right? Political battles, betrayals, threats of violence.
Yeah, he was facing it all. I mean, it really seemed like Trindade and his crew had him backed into a corner.
They did. But this is where we really see Rodrigo's character develop. He's learning some tough lessons about, power and compromise.
So he's growing up a bit.
He is. He's not just this idealistic young doctor anymore. It's become more than just fighting for ideas. It's about protecting the people he cares about and building a future for Santa Fe.
It's gotten personal.
Yeah. And so do his methods. He realizes brute force isn't enough. Remember, he attacked Dante Seco. Well, now he starts to see that real change requires a more strategic approach.
So what does he do? Does he give up on the newspaper? On a FARPA?
He changes it up, actually. He turns a FARPA into this platform for, broader social change. Less about attacking Trindade personally and more about exposing the whole corrupt system.
So he's thinking bigger picture now.
Exactly. And he's advocating for the poor and marginalized and really starts to lay out a vision for a better Santa Fe.
Trying to build a movement, not just win a fight.
That's a great way to put it. He's realizing that to create something new, he needs to win over people's hearts and minds.
But surely Trindade doesn't just let him run wild with this new strategy.
Oh, definitely not. The conflict keeps going. Lots of twists and turns. Betrayals, shifting alliances, even more personal tragedies, all emphasizing just how risky it is to challenge the status quo.
It sounds exhausting, honestly.
It must have been. And then remember that presidential candidate, Hermes de Fonseca, his visit becomes this huge turning point.
Right, I'd forgotten about him.
Well, when he shows up, it's like all the divisions in Santa Fe just erupt, and personal relationships get all tangled up in the political stuff. You really see how love, loss, loyalty, it all plays a part.
So does Rodrigo succeed? Does he, achieve everything he set out to do?
Well, it's not a simple happy ending. The novel isn't about clear-cut victories. It's about Rodrigo's journey, about learning to handle a world that's always changing.
So it's more about the process than the destination.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
He learns that progress isn't always a straight line. It often comes with a price.
That's a valuable lesson for all of us, I think, especially in a world that's so obsessed with instant results.
Totally. And it makes you think about what progress really means, right? Like, is it
Yeah.
always a good thing? What are we willing to give up for it?
Deep questions.
And that's what makes this deep dive so interesting. It's not just about history. It's about us. It's about human nature, about power, about this constant push and pull between the old and the new.
It makes you look inward a bit, examine your own values.
Exactly. So as you all think about Rodrigo's journey, ask yourselves, what does progress mean to you? What would you fight for? What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
Wow. That's a lot to ponder. Thanks for taking us on this deep dive. It's been quite a ride.
My pleasure. And to everyone listening, keep exploring, keep questioning, and till next time, keep diving deep.